Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another We Thrive at Life chat. Today, I have Laura Shaw with me, and Laura and I have already been on a podcast together. Laura is a trauma informed grief coach, and she's the author of Be Still My Grieving Heart and the host of Healing Journeys with Jesus podcast, which I had the awesome privilege of being on. After losing her husband, Laura walked through the raw realities of grief and trauma and rebuilding her life. And now she helps women discover that while grief changes everything, it doesn't have to define the rest of our lives. So I want to welcome you, my dear friend, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited too.
So today we're going to talk about grief.
Yep.
I had put some stuff in my last book, which was Diary of a Fat and Mourning Post-Pandemic Woman, where I talked about addiction and
Best title ever, by the way. Go ahead.
thank you. That was Jesus. But I in that I talk about grief. And one of the things that I learned is that grief is like a fingerprint. You've got those 5 steps that we go through to, acceptance, denial, moving forward, all of those. But everybody's journey, just like our fingerprints, is its own. It's got its own pattern, it's got its own waves and things like that. And so I just want to thank you for being here and for talking about this subject because I think it's just really important, especially on, with everything that's happened since the virus. A lot of people have lost a lot of people and things and lives, and, maybe they may not have passed on, but I know that a lot of people and a lot of people that I coach too have lost they're grieving because their life is not the same anymore, you know.
Yeah.
And so I just want to, just talk to people about that and to pull them out and to give them hope because without hope, our hearts perish. So if you wouldn't mind talking about your book and telling us about
Yeah.
you and how you're doing and all of that, take the floor, my friend.
Yeah. So, do you want me to start with my story and how I got there or?
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be great.
Okay.
Just give us a little fill in.
Well, I am just over 3 years out from losing my husband. We had been very short version of this story, but um, we were married 24 years at the time. We had been on vacation, little work, play kind of thing. Came home, got the whole house like cleaned up, the kids ready, and we have 4 kids together. And went back to work on Monday morning and couldn't get him on the phone. And I mean, we had been home less than 48 hours. And I'm like, what in the world? Like trying to make sure he's got an adjustment at the chiropractor. And we've got, payroll coming in because it's holiday week, the next week coming up, and all these things happening. And he's not answering his phone. I'm like, what the heck? Why are you not answering your phone? Called the kids and they're like, oh, it's really quiet up there. We feel like dad fell back asleep. We don't want to disturb him. I'm like, I'll be home in a few minutes. Came
Mm,
home and I found him and he was gone. I
mm,
mean, just like that. And that moment like fractured my life, the before and after. Um, and so then I became like, okay, well, I was married. Well, I'm not married anymore. I'm a widow now,
mm.
at 44 years old. Like, who wants to say that, right? 44 years old, 4 kids, 3 of them living in the home with me at the time. 2 of them who were there with me when I found him. Um, and 2 that I, had to tell later on. Um, and it really became a matter of how do I now thrive in this life that looks so very different than what I had planned, than what I thought my future was going to look like, than what I want. Nobody wants to walk through that. Um, and so it became a very apparent to me that I had a lot of work to do. In the midst of grieving his loss, I don't know that you know this because I haven't shared this very much. I found out that he was not faithful.
Mm.
for several years he was not faithful. I found out that even the day of his passing, there was infidelity. And so when you talk about losing someone who you thought you were building an entire life with, and then on top of the trauma of like discovering and doing CPR and hearing your kids screaming in the background, all the horrific things that happen with a sudden death or any death, then the trauma of why was I not good enough?
Mm,
Why did he feel like he needed to go outside the marriage?
mm,
Um, there's been a lot of layers to grief for me.
yeah.
And yeah, so that's kind of where I've landed. I remember years ago, years, probably 15 years, maybe more. I I felt this call that I was supposed to be writing.
Mm.
And I'm like, who wants me to write? Like I don't have anything to write about.
Yeah.
And I saw this quote that came up
Did
that
you look
said,
over your shoulder like I did? What? Who? Wait
yeah,
a
like
minute, is
what?
somebody behind me?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, okay, if you say so, that's kind of what I say to God sometimes, like, if you say so, whatever.
Mhm.
Sure. We'll see what that looks like down the road. And I feel like God does that to just plant dreams in our hearts that we don't even know that are coming, right? Or to plant seeds of a dream that he wants to help fulfill later on. And it was in one of these moments where I heard him say that. I was reading something probably on Facebook. I don't even remember where I saw it. But I read this quote that said, there will come a day when the story inside of you will need to come out. And that's when you'll begin to write. The day my husband died, I started writing. I needed a way to get words out of my head without having to burden anybody with them. Because that's how I felt. I felt like I was burdening people with my sorrow. I felt like I was burdening people with this desperate grief that I had. I didn't want to taint the honor of my husband's memory with my children, with the things that I was discovering.
Mhm.
So I began to write. And I began to dig very deep into the word and I began to write things that God was revealing to me. So, what initially started out as 100 days of journaling to my husband, writing letters to him, that spanned from I miss you so deeply to this really stinks. And I'm very angry with you. Those probably were not the kindest of words that I used in those journals, but I needed a way to tell him, and I couldn't tell him face to face
Mm.
anymore. I needed a place for my emotions to go. That's when I started to write.
I think it's so important to journal, whether it's for gratitude or for where we are right now, to kind of flesh things out with the Lord.
Yeah,
And I do understand that part of, as a matter of fact, I was just talking with someone today, and I had left a voicemail and I said, hey, when you come out of your cave, your little bubble there, give me a
yeah,
call, because it's something that, this person does, and I know a few other people that do it. And she said to me, she goes, I just don't talk to a lot of people because, and she's been going through some physical things, and she said, I just don't want to burden people with the same thing every day, because all I do is feel pain all day long. And I said, I know how you feel, because I've had a little bit of a setback myself the past couple of weeks. And so
yeah,
I've just been keeping to myself. But keeping to yourself from others is one thing. And I don't think the Lord wants us to do it, too often, because we're supposed to be in community. But keeping ourselves from him for long periods of time is not a good thing for us. That I know. um
agree.
but journaling is just such a wonderful thing, because I feel like the Psalms are David's journals. One minute he's, you know, I want to slay him or whatever, and he's down in
Yeah,
the dumps, and then the next minute it's like, I encourage myself in the Lord, and he keeps going, you know.
yeah.
And it's nice to be able to do that with God because those human emotions are there and you don't want to, put them under the rug and not deal with them. You also don't want to flare them up and, make things mountains out of molehills, but I just there's this healthy balance of bringing things to the Lord and leaving them at his feet and just getting it out of us.
Yeah,
I just think that's so important, and it's good that you did that because I'm sure it helped you quite a bit, you know?
it did. I found myself really, really tangled in a web of emotion. Right? And grief brings, I mean, I think you said there were 5 steps to grief, and I agree. I actually think there's a 6th step to grief, but we can talk about that in a few minutes. And healing is not linear, right? It's not this like, we're gonna start here, we're gonna hit step 1, we're gonna check it off. We're gonna step 2, we're gonna check it off, and we're gonna get to the end, and yeah, we're gonna be healed. And I wish that was the case because I am such a list maker and I love to check things off. That's just not how it happens. It's like this messy, I like to think about it like, when you get a necklace and you stick it in the bottom of your jewelry box and it gets all tangled up, and then you have to pull it out and you have to like almost massage it with your fingers, right? To pull all the knots out.
Yes.
That's what grief feels like to me. You
Mm.
have to you get one knot out and then another one starts to create, right? And you have to like really,
Especially
really,
when the links are really small,
yes. But that's grief. I mean, honestly, that to me, that's what grief feels like. You have to constantly massage it and work through so that you can open it up and you can, you know, get to a point where there is healing.
get it to come loose and put it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us about your book. So what are some of your
So
chapters?
my book, I actually have it right here. You can
Yay.
see it. It's called Be Still My Grieving Heart. It's 31-day devotional, 31 days of surrender, growth, and healing at the feet of Jesus.
Mm,
It is quite literally my journals.
mm.
It is the things, and it's not written like my journals would be written, it's written like a devotional, but it is things that God showed me along the way. Each day has a scripture anchor, each day has a devotional, a prayer for the days that you can't find the words to pray for yourself, a journaling prompt because, your girl likes to write. And then there's a grief exercise that goes with every single day. Um, yeah, this is God's word right here. This is everything.
We're gonna put the links in after, when we post everything so that people can, who want the book or reach out to you can get it. Tell me a little bit about how, um, like what was the most important thing to you once everything happened? And what do you think is the most important thing for people to do when they're faced with the situation? Like, I call it first words,
Mhm.
where when something happens, I try to watch my first words as much as I can because I feel that the way that we talk to ourselves is very important and the way we speak to a situation is very important. So,
Mhm.
what do you think people would benefit from when they first hear something like that? What do you think they should do?
Do you mean in regards to if somebody else they know has lost someone?
Yes, when no, when you lose someone
Um,
who's that, has that much of value in your life, that's had that much of an impact, what would you say would be like the first healthy thing to do for ourselves when we're
Rest,
acted that way? Rest.
rest,
Yes.
and eat a good meal,
Yeah.
hydrate. And I know that sounds primitive almost, but in the midst of the really messy parts of grief and the really like acute grief that we get, like the hits right on after the shock wears off, of course.
Mhm.
We have a tendency, I think society tells us that we just got to muscle through. And if you distract yourself and you do all these things, then you'll be fine.
Mhm.
But what happens is that you're not fine, right? Grief just sits there and waits.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, you want to go be busy at work? Cool.
Mhm.
I'll see you when you get home.
Right. Right. I
Oh,
think
you want to stay up all night and watch TV? Cool. When you fall asleep, I'm going to come visit you in your dreams.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, you're going to go get in the car and take a drive? Awesome.
Mhm.
The minute you turn on something or you turn that music off, hello,
Mhm.
something's going to happen.
Mhm.
And it's not this like impending doom, right? But it's the emotions that we don't face
Yes.
are the ones that just continue to sit there and wait. I heard this story pretty early on in my grief journey. I don't know, Levi Lusko talks about it in his book Through the Eyes of a Lion. Through the Eyes of a Lion, I think that's the name of it. Anyways, Levi Lusko, he's a pastor, if you're not familiar. And he talks about the buffalo and the cow and how they get through a storm. And I'm going to be very inarticulate when I share this. He shares it very more articulately. But the gist of it is the cow has a tendency to run away from the storm, right? The buffalo runs into the storm. If you think about what happens when you're running away from a storm, what happens? The storm continues to follow you.
Right.
Right? It continues to follow you. But when you run through the storm or you run to the storm, you come through the other side.
Right. Um,
And I have said to so many people, like, you got to be like the buffalo. We have to be like the buffalo because the buffalo know how to get through the storm. They know how to run to it and run through it. And I think our grief and our emotions and all the stuff that comes with it is very much like a storm, right?
mhm.
It comes in, it picks up our lives, it turns it around, it turns it upside down. And if we continue to run away from it, it's just going to follow us. But if we run to it and we sit with those emotions and we take them to the Lord and we ask Him to help us, help reveal what we want, what He wants us to see in those moments, ask Him to help us uncover um, the root of where they're coming from, right? Then we have the opportunity to move through it a whole lot faster.
Right.
And it's not fast like that. It is a process, and it's a process that I reluctantly will dare to say will be for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
But it's also such a gift. And I think grief has grief has been such a gift to me because it's taught me how to sit with emotions that I never dealt with for years in my life. And it's taught me how to pick things up and learn how to examine them and to ask God what I need to learn. Or I have a fly in here, sorry. Ask God, ask God to help me see the things that I'm not seeing with grief on the lens. Help me clear the lens of grief. Help me see what it is that I need to learn. Help me become more self aware.
Yes.
Help me heal my heart. I want to be whole. I want to be complete in Him. And when I take these things to the Lord, then He gives me, it's a gift. It's a
Yes.
gift. He's like, okay, but would you have done this without grief? And I don't think I would have.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we need to do is to understand ourselves, you know,
Yeah.
and who we are, and just be who we are, you know. Um, one of the things that, my dad was in our home before he passed, and we took care of him until he went. And I remember the last few days that he was alive. I think it was, Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember. And I said to my husband, I said, because he had been through something similar, and I said to him, I said, he's breathing kind of weird, whatever, and we were just having this conversation, and I said, how long do you think? Because I just, as much as I loved him and wanted him to stay with me, I was tired of seeing him suffer.
Yeah.
And I said, how much longer do you think he's gonna be here based on what his breathing and what you've gone through? And he goes, I would probably just give it 2 or 3 days. I don't think it's gonna be much more than that. And I said, okay, because I'm a like, preventative maintenance person.
Yeah.
Like to prepare myself like you with the lists and let's be ready. And I remember I said to him, I said, you know, I don't know, because I've had a lot of people pass away in my life, but nobody right there with me. Even my mom, she was away when she passed. She decided to go back to our homeland in Italy, and she kept telling us she had more time until her sister was like, "Get your butts over here." And she
Yeah.
passed like right as we were in flight, my sister and I going over, even my brother who left before us didn't get there in time. And I think it was intentional, you know. But anyway, I remember saying to my husband, I said, I'm either going to go into task mode and just go around doing everything I need to do until I'm done or I fall, right? Or I'm going to curl up in a ball and I'm not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah.
And so I realized that this was one of the two ways that I was going to handle this because I just knew myself, you know? And so, having been through so many things in my life that required me to do one of those or the other, I was prepared for that,
Yeah.
either one or the other. And I was with him the whole night in his room. I was, guiding the morphine to where, it was the same dose essentially, but you know, in, how do I say it? Same increment, I mean, same dose, but at more sped up increments. So,
Uh-huh.
like, say, 4 milligrams or whatever the heck it is, every 4 hours, I was just giving him, mapping it out so he had it consistently the whole time and didn't have to wait till, the 4 hours were up to
Yeah.
give more. And so, that being said, that was like the whole night, and I was up. I I wasn't tired or anything. And then I fell asleep for like 5, I swear it was 5 minutes. 'Cause the next thing I knew, I woke up and I felt like I had slept all night.
Yeah.
And then I checked on him and he was still breathing, and then it was the last breath. And he
Mhm.
was doing that, what is it called? The apnea where they breathe in, but then, they're still
Mhm.
breathing. They stop, they're still breathing, but then they come back. But this one time he didn't come back. And I remember calling out to him, my husband, because he was in the other room. And then it was like, oh, I need to call this person. I need to call that person. I need to take a shower because I'm one of those people. I got to take a shower. And then like the barrage of things happened, and I took care of everything that needed to be care of. One, two, three, four, five, six. People were calling. And then at the end, I'll never forget. I love Good Friday because it reminds me of what the Lord did for me, and I
Yeah.
especially love the part where everything gets dark. I love it when it rains on Good Friday because it gives me an opportunity to cocoon even more into, because when the sun is shining, it's like I'm awake, I need to be happy,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. So that's what happened here. I had one of our guys that had been here before, and I was like, "Hey, could you come clean the rug?"
Mhm.
And he's like, "Sure." So he was the last person here. And as he was here, it was getting darker and darker. And when he left, it was pouring outside. I mean, it was like
Mhm.
pouring. And I sat down in the living room for like not even 5 minutes. And I looked at James and I said, "We gotta go." He looked at me and he's like, "Okay." And I'm like, "No, we gotta go." And I think one of the best things I did for myself is we just packed our bags, we just threw everything in a bag, got in the car, and we went to this um one of my favorite places to go. It's right on the ocean, and I love walking that strip. And so we
Yeah.
just went down there. We were there for 3 days, and that disconnect, especially with him being in my home and that
Yeah.
happening, was like, I mean, there were the flashbacks when I got back. I don't know if this happened with you, but it was like, it was almost hard to go into that room and things like that. But the bottom line is that I knew that these were some of the ways that I was going to react, and knowing that helped me to, kind of be both ways, take care of the things that I needed to take care of, and then once those things were done, I knew enough to be like, we got to go.
Yeah.
And I thank God for that because I feel like coming back fresh, having that time and being able to watch the waves and to walk and to just be free to process was
Yeah.
so helpful in the journey,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And not everybody can get away, but there are ways to get away,
Yeah.
paths, just taking care of ourselves, removing ourselves from situations that could be, you know, like a not right now situation that could put us in a place where we're not supposed to be. It's very important too.
It
Um,
is.
and not, I don't think there's anything that anybody could say to somebody else during this time that's going to make things go away. And if you feel like you're one of those people that has the talk, don't, you know, because
Yes,
I think,
yes.
I
Don't
think,
I hope you can't see my eyes rolling. Like my favorite one is like, just let us know what we can do for you.
mhm,
Okay, girl, I don't know what I need to do today, you know? It's one of those like it's such a well-meaning
yes,
phrase, but I don't know what I need to do. So how do I know how to ask for what I need to do? And honestly, if I have to ask, I'm just going to do it myself.
that's us. That's
Yeah.
us.
It's so
It's
interesting.
faster for me to do it than for me to say it and wait for you to come help me.
That's right. And
So
that's one of
sorry.
the things that I love to tell people is that when you are going through something like this, like one of the things that you can do is when people offer to help,
Mhm.
accept imperfect help
Yes.
because it's never going to be the help most likely. I won't say never, I hate absolutes, but we'll say most likely will not be to either the standard or the way that you want it done, but
Mhm.
they're there to help. And at
Yes.
least it's getting done, right?
Yes. Yes. I
You know,
agree.
something you were saying about your dad passing in your home. Joe, my husband, passed in our bed.
Mm,
Um, and it that was a very spiritually dark time for me, losing him in our, where we slept every night. And for several months after he died, I would have horrific nightmares about finding him and just like this replay of all these things. And well, I didn't know we were going to go here tonight, but so forgive me if I get a little emotional, but I remember I got into this rhythm where I would either put worship music on at night or I would put in some sort of white noise, like rain sounds or something, so that my mind had something else to focus on than what the enemy was trying to do in my
yes.
dreams. Very, very vivid dreams during this time. And a
Mm,
lot of them were dark, very dark dreams. Um, and one night I kept hearing this song playing, and and I'm telling you this because I don't know if it was on my phone or if it was just in my dreams.
right.
But I see myself asleep, like I'm levitating above myself, and I see my husband in, I see my husband gone. I'm watching myself find him. I'm watching myself call 911. I'm watching myself do CPR. Hearing my children screaming, like all of the trauma that was a part of that moment. And I hear God say, I was there.
Mhm, mhm,
I
mhm.
see another moment. And I can't tell you how many moments of my life after he passed that I see. It's like this like movie reel. You know, when you have the movie, it's like click,
Yeah.
click, click,
Yeah.
click. And I'm just like levitating above myself in these different moments. And he's like, I was there.
Mm,
I was there.
mhm.
And I keep hearing this song in the back of my head. I was there. I was there. And I kid you not. And I think our God is so gracious to us because there's been so many hard moments since his passing that that song will come on in a hard moment. And I just hear him say, I'm here too.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that.
Amen.
So grateful for it.
He does show up in ways like that. I was just reminded one of my cousins, that I grew up with over in Italy, we looked very much alike. and sometimes people would mistake us for each other,
Yeah.
if we were far enough away.
Yeah.
And when she passed, I went over and everything, and I had had a dream that something was going to happen, not specifically to her, but it was just when I think of the dream afterwards, it was like, yeah, this is why I dreamt this. And
Yeah.
like you were saying before, I was having the hardest time falling asleep. I would stay up till all hours to where I thought I was so tired that now, maybe if I go to bed now, it's 3 o'clock. Surely I'll fall asleep as soon as I hit that pillow. But no. And I remember going to church one day, and when I came back, because I had said something like, Jesus, I'm afraid to go to bed.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that, I don't know. I was just afraid. And I came home and I was walking up the stairs and into my room, and I had this vision. I just saw Jesus on my bed, like on the side that I didn't sleep on. And he
Yeah.
was just sitting there upright, laying down, but sitting upright. And he was reading the paper, and he's like, hi. And he communicated to me that I'm here, you
Yeah.
know, whenever you come to bed, I'm going to be here and I'm going to watch over you while you're sleeping. And that
Yeah.
meant the world to me. And I
Yeah.
remember another time saying to the Lord, you don't understand how I feel. And
Mm.
I go to church again, and I'm sitting there and the pastor's talking about John the Baptist and how that was Jesus's cousin. So the Lord knows your grief. And I'm
He
thinking,
does.
what? And I never ever put those two things together until it
It's,
was shown to me. So
yeah.
when it says in the word that it was like, wow, he really did experience things, same as me, you know. He knows that pain too.
He does.
And I'll just never forget those things amongst others, but it
Yeah.
was just really just a wonderful thing to be able to that he made himself available. I mean, that psalm, what is man that he's mindful of us? Who
Mm.
am I for you to come here, my little grief here, and here you are, and you're walking me through it. And I
Yeah.
think that is so awesome that he did that with you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so how did you progress and walk through?
Through
Did you
grief.
did you continue to journal? Did you start doing things differently?
Um, I feel like I did a lot of things, and I don't know that I did them all well.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, I immersed myself into writing,
Mhm.
really studying the word. I would spend hours each day. Um, some days I would look up and went through a spell where I was up at like 2:30, 3:30 every morning. And it was like God was saying, I need to talk to you. I need you to get up. This is when I need you to get up because you're not doing anything else right now except sleeping. And I know that rest is important, and I like lean into that, but I also feel like those were times where he was like, I need to speak to you. And so I found myself really struggling to read during those times. Grief was and a lot of trauma that I've uncovered since then has really done quite the number on my ability to focus to read. So I was either listening to a sermon or listening to a podcast and maybe taking some notes. Um, but I'm really struggling to read. Um, And I learned a lot during that time. I learned a lot just by getting still in his presence and listening. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if you're a believer that the Lord is with you, He's with you always. It's really true when He says that He never leaves us or forsakes us. And right now I'm thinking about that poem, where you're walking on the beach and
Yeah.
there's you know a period of time where there's only one set of footprints because you couldn't walk on your own. He had to carry us, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that because the I think when she passed, just the sheer terror of how things happened because, well, I believe she was murdered. It looked like a suicide, but the Lord showed me that it wasn't, you know. And so um I believe that to this day, that there were extenuating circumstances and, you know, that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
But, I just the Lord showed me that, and I'll never forget also, and this is why it's so important to work through the grief because I thought I was working through it, but I really wasn't because I had a friend of mine come. I actually had like a really weird tummy ache. I don't know if it was something I ate or something like that, and she came over and she put her hands on my stomach and she said, "Are you okay? Because your stomach feels weird to me." And I said, "Well, I do have kind of a bug. I don't know if it's something I ate or if it's a 24-hour thing or whatever." She's like, "No, this is not a bug." She goes, "You have death in your stomach." And I was like, "Okay, what the heck does that
That's not what you want to hear.
know?" And so I was like, "Okay, you freak. It's time for you to go." No. She said she goes, "A couple of my friends are in town and they're going to be, doing a thing at our church today." She goes, "But why don't you come a little bit earlier?" And I tell you, those beautiful women prayed over me and
Mhm.
they, the death, I didn't know that that was what was still in me because
Yeah.
like, I don't know, maybe a year or so had already gone by, you know,
Yeah.
and I had moved, I was in a new place and um but when they were praying over me, it was like it came out.
Mhm.
That's what that death was. That death was grief. And that's one of the things that I talk about is how to handle the grief in a healthy manner
Yeah.
because it can be toxic
It
and it
can.
can kill us.
Yeah.
There's people that, and if this is you, I'm sorry, but the Lord gave us, and I remember when my mom passed, and one of my friends who really wasn't Christian at the time, we were on the phone and I said something to her. She was on maternity leave and I stepped in for her when I was, doing that kind of stuff back then. And we were talking on the phone and she said to me, she goes, "You know, I don't read the Bible a lot." She goes, "But isn't there someplace in there that says that you're only supposed to grieve for a certain amount of time?" And I was like, "Joshua, chapter 1, Moses, my servant, is dead. Get up." And it had been 30 days. So the
Yeah.
Lord, and, and there's, for them, specific ways to grieve, right?
Yeah.
Because the Lord wanted it all to come out so that they could continue later. And it's not to say that we forget the person, that we don't think about them anymore.
Ah,
But, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we're supposed to walk through. We're not supposed to stay there, you know.
yeah.
And I think it's really important to recognize that and to work through these things because, uh, you know, like you've got 4 kids. You need to be there for them, you know.
Yeah.
And we do have the luxury of grieving, and I think that if we, you know, take care of ourselves and spend time with the Lord and do the things that we need to do, even if, like you said, you do them, half baked, you're still doing,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then the next time you're maybe taking 15%, and then maybe next time you'll take 20% and 30% till you get up to that 100, right?
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
just think it's so important to walk through the grief however way that you can, even if you have to lean on somebody else, please go through it because otherwise it's not going to end well. I've seen people who just never lived their lives again because of the grief that they had. And they've
Yeah.
got grandchildren and they've got all these things going on, but they're a half a shell of a person because they choose to. It's almost like, for some of them, they feel guilty moving on because they've got such soul ties with that person that they
Yeah.
can't move forward. They never, I mean, even when kids are born, the umbilical cord is broken. So that
Right.
both can live, right? And live together, but live separately and breathe their own oxygen. And when you refuse to do that, you're cutting yourself off from the life that, and I am sure as I'm sitting here talking to you today, that once they're gone, I don't, even the meanest person on the planet would not want you to not live your life, right? They're not here anymore. They don't want you,
Yeah.
if nobody can have you, if I can't have you, nobody can have you kind of thing. I don't know. I just
Yeah, we it's interesting you say that, and I think that's, kind of the stigma that we get with, especially as widows, that what is the right time, or what is the right timing for others to be okay with you to move forward?
yes, yes.
It's something that in the widow community we don't talk about very publicly, but amongst ourselves, and I'm telling you, there is a community of women that I guarantee you, in your life, that are widows who struggle with the idea of what does it look like to move forward now that he's gone. And um, something that God really showed me early on was that I fulfilled my covenant with him.
Mm.
And I fulfilled my covenant with him because I was faithful to him until the day that he died. And does that make it easier to move forward? No, it doesn't. But I needed permission to do that. I
Okay.
needed I needed a way to say it's okay that I continue to live my life, that I move forward, and that I'm happy. And I'm going to say this, it's in life, it's in, what do you want your life to look like now? Are you going to remarry? Are you going to have a life with someone else after this? And nobody can tell you what that looks like.
Right.
God can help you decide for you, but you ultimately get the decision with God what that looks like for you going forward. It doesn't make it easy. It's a very hard thing to step into a next season when you've lost a person that you were married to, right? When you were one flesh with one person. I struggled really hard with the idea of like breaking that tie with him, because we were one flesh. We were husband and wife for almost 25 years.
And if you think about that, right, you're one flesh, and that piece of, at the risk of sounding gross, if you lose a body part, a finger, or even if you cut it, right, there's this period of healing that has
Yes.
to happen. You got to put something on that wound so you don't bleed out. You've got to nurture it, you've got to sanitize it. There's all of these things that you need to do in order to not completely lose that part, and for it to, like, say you just do the tip of your finger, and there's a process that needs to happen for the full healing to come, right?
Yeah.
And when we cut that process short is when things don't go as well for us as they would.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you that uh I've seen people get with other people in as little as 6 months, and have it be totally healthy. And then I've seen people do it as little as 6 months and have it be horrible because
Yeah.
they never walked through the process.
Yeah.
Some people are really good at managing their emotions, as at moving things along and being able to compartmentalize and all of these other things, and it makes it easier for them to move on. And some people just don't. But like you said, it's there's no right or wrong. I feel like the only wrong is not dealing with it properly. And we do a
Huh.
disservice to ourselves and to those around us when we don't, even just letting other people in to help us grieve, right? I mean, eh, one of the neat things that happened when my dad passed was, I had gone through so much with caring for him, and my friend at the time, she passed too. My high school friend, she was a physician's assistant. And I remember her saying to me, because my brother was making arrangements for a memorial, and him and my sister lived close by, and I was just, you know, And I
Yeah.
went to this women's event because I was part of membership at the time, and they were doing this big, membership because it was getting close to, September and everybody's coming back. And I went to that, and I'm so glad that I did because I got like a shot in the arm. And all of a sudden, I woke up the next day, and this was a Thursday night, Friday. The thing was on Saturday. And I remember calling my sister and I said, I don't know, because my friend was like, you need to do this, you need to do that, like from the medical standpoint, right? And also as my friend. And I looked at James that morning too, and I said, I don't know if this is me or if it's God, but I feel like I need to go, And he goes, well, whatever you want to do, you do. Just let me know. And I said, okay. And then I called my sister, who's, she's almost like my daughter because there's 16 years between us. So she's like the baby in the family, and I'm the older one. And I was saying, I think I need to come up. And I hear her in the background, clicking on the computer, and she goes, well, you could take a train, or you could do this, or you could do that. And I said, I think I'm going to drive. And I drove what was supposed to be, and I'll never forget this. We were switching cars because I had a company car at the time, and he was taking it to work because it was better on gas than, the SUV that we had. And so I went to the parking lot and we switched cars. I said goodbye to him, and I put my dad in the back seat, and my dad was a truck driver, right? So I buckled him in, and I said, and I'm still waiting to hear if am I supposed to go or not, And I'm just walking through the steps, and I clicked the seat belt, and I said, "Okay, Daddy, road trip," and I shut the door. And just as I went to go open the driver door, I got in, and I heard his voice, my dad's voice, say to me, um, I heard him say, "Thank you,"
Mm.
because I was going up and I was bringing him up,
Yeah.
and it was just so wonderful to see my dad through the eyes of other people, their
Yeah.
memories of him, their stories of him, and being able, because, I'm a lot like you personality wise, and it's like, these pieces of the puzzle have to come together somehow and fit, and give me a good picture too. And and I was just seeing the pieces of the puzzle come together, like where his decline started, you know going back, not just when we got him, but I just got to see so many things through the eyes of other people. And I
Yeah.
think it's important to be able to do that with people, to be able to share the life of that person, and to talk about good things and maybe even hard things, so that we
Yeah.
don't keep them inside and bottle them up and not talk about them, you know, like you
Yeah.
about the journaling and saying things that you probably couldn't say to other people, or go into detail with other people, and maybe some things you didn't want to share with your kids, or I just think it's important to walk through those things and to allow um I started, you and I are always writing, but one of the things that the Lord showed me was like talking about the legacies of the people that were in, and one of the things that I heard the Lord say is, I don't know if it's going to be the title, the subtitle, or whatever, but I always got this, was I carry you with me. And it's the things that those people taught us, we carry with us in our hearts. The good,
Yeah.
the bad, you know, the encouragements, the don't do this that way, do it this way because you're better off kind of thing. You carry those things with you. And
Mhm.
that's a good legacy, is to have those memories and to have those pieces where, you just honor the life of that person, good or bad, and the things that they taught you, whether they were good or whether they were bad. Because everybody leaves us wisdom. It's wisdom to stop, wisdom to go, wisdom to do things this way, wisdom to not do things this way just because of the way they live their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
And honoring their memory. One of the one of the sayings that I have quite a few Jewish friends, and they
Mhm.
always say, may their memory always be a blessing to you. And I
Mm.
love that because
Yeah.
you want their memories to be a blessing to you. And I just love that part. So, where are you today and where are you going?
There are so many ways I could answer that question. How would you like for me to take it?
I don't know. Just give some encouragement to people that
Yeah. God's really done a work on my heart. Um, there's still work to be done. I learned, I swear he revealed this to me pretty directly. Last weekend I had a trigger that happened, a trauma trigger. Um, I was at a friend's house. We'll just leave it at that. And we were working on a project, and I did something that knocked the project back. And this friend of mine's been working on this project for a while. I'm not going to say how long, but longer than they want to be working on it. And I immediately was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I like started crying. And I didn't even remember saying this, but within a couple minutes, I just said, thank you for not yelling at me. And they were like, why would I yell at you for that? You know? And immediately I was like, yeah, why would somebody yell at me for that? Right? Couple hours go by, I'm still crying, still just not able to get out of it. That's how trauma does. It comes up at the times we'd least expect it. And we changed rooms and we were just having a conversation. And they were like, maybe consider that these moments that we have, these places that we still need to heal, are reminders that we still need God in our lives. That we still have broken pieces because we live in a broken world, and we still need we still need our heavenly Father to help us hold them together. And I was like, wow, that's some good word right there, you know? Um, and so yeah, still have healing to do. But he's brought me a long way. He's really, really done a number in my life. Um, all my kids have moved out. I'm an empty nester now.
ooh,
Sold the house. I live in a one-bedroom apartment now with two dogs. It's amazing. It is like I'm having the time. I live in this little city where I can walk and get Starbucks or go get a, bowl or go do yoga on the lawn. We have an amphitheater across the street. Like, loving this time of my life. Um, I'm really honored to get to work with a ministry that helped me come out of a lot of my grief. And I get to coach women that come through that ministry. Very full circle for me. Um, I sold our family business. I didn't sell our family business. I closed it. Um, I work full time for this corporate environment, and uh, really leaning into the gifts that I have with dealing with small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and helping them grow, and to helping teach them different skills while helping them staff and put people in place. I always say I work for a bougie staffing company, but we really do like fractional support for financials and marketing and stuff like that. And I feel like very fulfilled.
help. And I feel like that's how it is when we go through things, is that the Lord
Yeah,
wants us to go through so that we could help others who may not be able to go through, who don't have the same relationship, or it's not as deep, or they're not in the word as much, whatever it is.
yeah,
I just love the fact that you're helping others as well to get through whatever it is that they need to get through and
yeah,
to come out the other side better for what they went through. Like you said before, you know, this happened for me, that and it was something that, grief brought to you that made you better, that
yeah,
made you better able to fill in the blank. Uh, and even me. I could say that about everything, every single thing that happened in my life. Did it hurt? Did it hurt to go through it? Do I still, I mean, just today I was looking at I was watching a show and they were interviewing Gloria Estefan. And,
Mm,
she kind of went through the same thing that I went through. And I was like in tears, like tissues, fixing myself. And it brought me back to that time to where, wow, I'm not there anymore. Wow, I can't believe I went through this, but wow, I'm not there anymore. And it's almost like it happened to another person, you know?
yep.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that when we can allow ourselves, open ourselves up to have people help us, even if it, like you said, it may not be the way that we imagine it, or we may have to fix it after they leave a little bit, there was still that intention, there was still that love, and there was still that help that was there for us. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm so I want to thank everybody for listening to We Thrive at Life chats, whatever we're going to call it here. And I hope that this helped you somehow to pull you out of that grief, to acknowledge that you're there, and to look for ways to see yourself through. And Laura,
Yes.
how can people connect with you? I'm going to put the links in, but you're at laurashaw.com.
It's laura-shaw.com. And
.com.
then I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and emerging on TikTok at Laura Shaw Coach.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So there
So,
you have
and
it.
then my book is on
And
Amazon.
your book, yes. And I will put all of the links for Laura and the book link for her as well on our YouTube channel and on our social media channels. So thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate you so much, my friend. And I wish you were here so I could give you a big old hug.
One day we'll be able to do that.
Amen.
Sure.
Amen. Right. Thank you.